And welcome to the second webinar of the University of Minnesota Extension Strong Markets, Smart Moves Cattle Edition webinar series. Thank you for participating tonight. We appreciate your questions and look forward to engaging with you throughout tonight's presentation. The University of Minnesota team is a collection of extension educators and specialists located across the state. On your screen is a list of these educators who make this series possible. Thank you to all of them. Now I would like to welcome our presenter tonight, Troy Salzer. Troy is a local extension educator for the University of Minnesota Extension located in St. Louis County in Northeast Minnesota and was previously in Carleton and Roseau counties. He grew up in Barna, Minnesota, where he was raised on a commercial beef and forage operations. Programs he works with include beef programming, manure and nutrient management, cover crops for soil health and grazing, soil health management strategies, pasture management, and optimizing forage management and use in Minnesota. Troy has received his BS and MS degrees in animal science and animal nutrition from the University of Minnesota. Currently, he lives with his family on Sandy Hills Ranch located east of Barna, Minnesota. His family operates 120 female Angus Gelbvieh breeding cattle and operates a cow-calf operation, adding value via backgrounding. He also custom grazes cow-calf pairs and yearlings. Cattle are managed in a multi-paddock system where they graze on native pastures, improved perennial pastures, field corn, and cover crops. Extending the grazing season is a key factor in making the beef and sheep industries work in northern climates. He also works with farmers on depreciation issues to help reduce impact to their farms and ranches. Thank you, Troy, for being here tonight. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Maddie. I was hoping you were going to cut that down substantially. I just grabbed one from before. So I am so grateful that you took the time to do that, and for everyone that has joined us this evening in relationship to the program. As suggested earlier, I would really encourage lots of questions, because I think that this particular topic really should drive a tremendous amount of thought, and hopefully it's not just strictly about the beef business, but also about other options that that you can consider as we move forward. Thanks also to this great team to help us put this together, and hopefully it will be useful for you. So I have spent a lot of time over the course of this summer strategizing different approaches. Many of us in cattle business really do, as the year went on, thought about maybe how their particular checking account was growing due to a really good market, and now what options do we have? This is something that is quite different for us in the cattle business, and so with that in mind, what do we do now? And this photo is really indicative of some of the conversations that I've had with beef producers specifically as we went through the course of this season. Recently, Dr. Pauline Van Erden gave a presentation. She is an economist from the University of Minnesota. And in my career, I can never remember one time when northeastern Minnesota really was the highlight. And the highlight revolved around the aspects of how northeastern Minnesota had an increase in net profit per operation of 264% year over year. And really what that is describing is how the beef industry is primarily the focus of farm business management information in our area, and therefore it is indicating that each of those producers have a lot more capital to work with. So with that in mind, I think it's really important to point out the fact that we have never experienced prices this high before ever in history in relationship to the beef industry. I believe that there isn't hardly a person in the US that hasn't heard about this. Both our beef producers as well as the general public, especially as we've been recently made aware of looking at things like importation of beef in order to reduce the consumer costs of our particular product. Now, overall, I was listening to a commentary with Randy Black of Cattle Facts, and he had suggested we really shouldn't have seen this much of a hiccup. 8% decrease in fats and more like 11% in feeder cattle. And we're hoping that we'll be able to overcome that here shortly. The other thing that is also helping us to achieve higher profits is that we are experiencing lower than average feed costs. As some data showed here by a study done at Iowa State, North Dakota State, as we look at 2025, we see the overall cost decreasing slightly and indicating that overall the costs have gone down, and so therefore making the cow-calf industry specifically more profitable than in 2024. So first of all, I want to make sure to clarify a couple different things. First of all, I'm not an accountant, and I will encourage you to spend some time with folks like your accountant in relationship to this. And I'm sure that they would agree, as well as with me, that it is okay to pay taxes. It indicates that you actually have been profitable. And I think when considering that, it's really critical to make a plan in relationship to how you are paying taxes. And in essence, avoiding some taxes is beneficial to your business, but make a plan in relationship to that. And so I'll encourage you by starting out that way. As far as goals for today, I really encourage you to critically think about things in different manners. Think about them in relationship to business, not just the fact that you love to raise cattle, but also how you can do a better job with managing your cattle and managing your business in relationship to that. Always identify the weaknesses and find tools to mediate them. Be decisive. And what I mean by that is it's really important to make calculated decisions, but don't allow those decision-making processes to stymie you and keep you from moving forward. Sometimes you just have to make a decision. And so doing the best you can to calculate them is really critical. We all make mistakes. Let's learn from them and improve and adapt and overcome them. And also think about the aspects of flexibility and balance, and that they are crucial for your long-term benefit of your operation. One of my favorite books is a book by the title of Horse of a Different Color. And this here is an actual autobiography written by Ralph Moody. And one of the components of this particular book, its setting was in the Dust Bowl era, and how he, over the course of his life, really looked at ways within the beef industry, within the hog industry, within the products produced by those animals, of how it can be marketed into different components of the market, not only just as commodity beef and commodity pork, but also how it can also be considered being marketed off the farm in cuts of bacon, sausage, and hamburger. So as you're going through, I encourage you to ponder the aspects of what are good or smart business and investments. I put together a list of things related to knowledge and technology, safety for you and the people around your operation. I thought about the aspects of creature comforts, so staying warm or staying cool, other investment options, and then finally we'll wrap this up with considering some of the tax saving ideas that you can further discuss with your local accountant. As you go through this presentation and also in your own planning process, I encourage you to ponder the aspect of what is your time horizon. And I know as I'm getting more like the left and less like the right, we begin to think about safety perhaps much more frequently than what we did when we were younger and thought we were invincible. And so keeping all of these things in mind and making those adjustments earlier in life might make it a little bit safer, but also allow you to continue to farm for a longer period of time. Now, in that particular case, if you have the next generation coming up, I really encourage you to ponder these things for their benefit as well. So as we consider smart business investments, I always look at different options in relationship to a high rate of return on investments, or ROI. This is something that as you talk with bankers and other advisors, they will talk about rate of return on investment, and calculating that can be a very difficult thing, or it can be a very straightforward thing. In a situation where we are calculating the benefit of maybe a manure spreader and getting manure more correctly distributed on the field, it's pretty straightforward because we are able to look at the fertilizer that we are replacing, and depending on how many tons you're applying or acres you're covering with that manure spreader, it comes to be very quickly that we can identify what that rate of return is, as compared to if you are thinking about the aspects of putting up a fence and not having animals get on the road. We really can't tell what that return is, other than you have the ability to sleep better at night, and that's of huge value from my point of view. Do you have the liquidity within your assets, whether that's cash flow or what have you, to be able to make these investments? And how much is that investment going to be? I always try to consider if there's multiple benefits that are derived from that investment. Temporary fencing supplies is another area that I encourage people to think about, because it can be multiple benefits from the aspects of handling livestock, perhaps, but also better utilization of the pastures that you do have and forages that you do have growing. The same is true of temporary water supplies or water lines that are run throughout your farms so that you can do a better job and get higher utilization of those pastures. For some of us in different parts of the state, wolf protection is another thing that is commonly an issue. And so putting up woven wire or a pasture or paddock where you can calve your cows in to minimize that wolf predation pressure might be a good place to make an investment, helping the animals not only survive, but also reduce the stress that they have. And then also improving fields and pastures so that their productivity in the long run will be improved. One of the things that I consider a pretty decent investment is barn cameras, especially for those calving in winter or early spring, and saving on the number of times that you have to go out to the barn and check on them. It's a fairly inexpensive investment, and also really can save you a lot of unnecessary trips, and is very easy technology to implement. As I had mentioned earlier, manure spreader. Another item that I have went through many calculations on recently is the aspects of heifer retention, and is that retention to maintain, build, or in essence create a separate enterprise, that being marketing those replacement heifers for other people to purchase. Often unthought of was the aspects of hay storage to decrease the amount of hay waste. Alongside of that is a bale wrapper, especially on a year like this when it was very difficult to put up high quality forage because of the frequency of rain throughout the course of this summer in certain parts of the state. And finally, the aspects of potentially purchasing goats. Now, I realize that this is a beef presentation, but I included this because perhaps it is a better time to be purchasing sheep or goats to include in your herd or your flock, because those animals are much more reasonably priced at this point in time. And it really points to looking at all of the potential business opportunities that you might have with the resources that currently exist on your farm. I'd be happy to spend a lot more time on this particular presentation or a component of this presentation at a later point. But more than anything, take the time to really ponder this. Now, I realize goats require significantly different fencing, but again, considerations. Safety is the next component that I'd encourage you to spend some time thinking about. Repairs to equipment, lights on tractors, trailers, other equipment, replacing tires that are wore out so that you don't have breakdowns along the road is a really fairly small investment, but when you have the opportunity with resources available, I suggest making these items a high priority in regards to your operation. Upgrading your cattle handling system. We've all seen operations and perhaps been involved with handling cattle in systems that boards are falling off, what have you. Take the time and replace posts. And I have been very happy to have many discussions this year with people putting up some continuous fencing or purchasing freestanding panels to improve their handling system. This will not only give you safer handling and working with the animals, but also a crew that is a lot happier when you get done and are complete. Another item is pouring concrete to minimize the mud. This is both for humans in their safety, but also animals as they are moving through. And mud will significantly reduce animal performance, and so therefore you get multiple benefits out of the use of that concrete. I realize it's expensive, but in the long run, it will pay huge dividends. Perimeter fences, as I had suggested earlier, minimizing conflict with vehicles is a high recommendation. And also consider the aspects of environmental issues. So setbacks from rivers, streams, and the aspects of green space between your feedlot and highway or county ditches in regards to that. Next, I'd like you to consider the aspects of knowledge or technology. And I often encourage people to spend time working on their business versus working in their business. And as you think about this, I realize that most of us do enjoy working in our business, meaning working with the livestock, working with the crops, all of that. But we can really produce high returns by working on our business. Another way I like to encourage farmers to consider this is that when you're working on your business, in essence, your dollars per hour should be in the neighborhood of 50 to 75, even $100 per hour, versus when you're out driving a tractor, you could hire somebody else to do that for something like $15 to $20 an hour. So there's a very high return on your investment, your time, by working on your business instead of in your business. Some of the things I'd encourage you to do is attend professional conferences to learn new skills or refine skills that you've already got. Work with your certified accountant so that you have everything in line, especially as we come towards the end of the year. If you haven't, consider being a part of the Farm Business Management Program, where they will break down your enterprises and look at which enterprise is most profitable and which ones may even be losing your money in relationship to things like growing corn or hay. All of those different enterprises can be broken down. Consider implementing a marketing professional, things like LRP, hedging, options, all of those things are things to be considered. LRPs, especially out of the money, LRPs don't have to cost you a lot, but in essence, put a floor under the cost and allow you to live another day, as I often encourage people to think about it as. Get to know your banker. They like to visit with you when you're making money, but if you don't have a relationship with them, when it's tough times, they're much less willing to work with you if they haven't had that relationship built with them. Consider your feedlot or grazing system redesign, working with folks like the Soil and Water Conservation District, NRCS, Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and yes, even us as extension folks can help you in taking into consideration things like your soil type and what plants grow best on those particular soils that you might have in regards to that. The next item on the list is crop advisors. Here again, working with them in regards to a soil fertility plan might be a good place to start so that you can increase your productivity of your fields and pastures. Another item is perhaps utilizing a scale, perhaps even utilizing a wand within that scale head so that you can track information related to average daily gain. And every time they go across the scale, you'll actually be able to calculate their performance and maybe find animals that aren't doing quite as well. This relates not only to the individual feeder cattle or finishing cattle, but also how that relates back to your cow herd and which cows are doing a good job for you in relationship to that. And then there's things like performance beef, as well as other cattle sense and other automated systems, even like Quicken or QuickBooks for your financial. All of these different technologies that are really not that complicated, but would pay big dividends when trying to dig out information and doing those calculations on return on investment. As far as coming to the year end, some of the pre-purchases that I'd encourage you to think about, officially based on rules, tax rules and regulations, you can make these purchases. You do not have to take delivery, but they have to identify exactly what you are purchasing. So if you're purchasing fertilizer, for example, how many tons of urea, DAP, diammonium phosphate, ammonium sulfate, or potash are you purchasing, and when will you be taking delivery? The same thing is true of feed, your salt and mineral, your seed for reseeding pastures and fields, as well as you can do this with your fuel, oil, and grease, some of which you'll have to take ownership of, but all things that have a proven shelf life that you can utilize throughout the course of the next summer. Parts, there are certain consumable parts for your equipment that would be advisable for you to purchase at year end for the next season. And I often encourage people to think about purchasing of bale wrap, twine, or plastic if you are doing bale wrapping specifically, as well, as those sort of things can add up to fairly significant dollar figures before the end of the year. If you're considering building a building in 2026, purchasing some of the construction materials in 2025 would be a really good way to handle part of that. And by doing that, you'll begin to start that depreciation process. Even doing a partial payment on that construction in 25 for the 26 season might be a way in which to get that process started. Again, it must be specified when you purchase it of how much and what is the particular product that you are planning to purchase. The last item on this list is something that you should work with your accountant very closely on, and was something that has been mentioned to me, but I don't know that details in relationship to the consideration of rolling dollars ahead into the next group of feeder cattle as you move through. My impression is that you have to close out the last group of feeder cattle and then start your next one in that process according to rules and regulations. Next, we have creature comforts. The first thing that comes to my mind is the aspects of a heated shop. Others of you might consider the aspect of a heated or partially heated calving barn. Water fountains. I often encourage people as they start the beef business to install water fountains first thing. I don't know about you, but I've spent more than my fair share of time thawing out water hoses in my life and never want to do that again, which I know is not even realistic, but putting in a good water fountain of whatever sort it might be with a non-freeze. Now, some of you, my colleagues in particular, might not realize that, but when you get this far north, it is very cold for much of the year. And I'm sure that some of the farmers on tonight would agree with me. Another item that is very sensible and really speeds the feeding process, both with accuracy as well as convenience, is the aspects of maybe a trip feeder, where you can deliver things like cake or ground feed in feed bunks with that, similar to a TMR wagon from that standpoint. Tractors and skid steers, especially if they have heat or air conditioning or both, would be a consideration. Other farm implements, updating them perhaps might be something to consider. Pickup trucks, livestock trailers, and also the aspects of potentially cattle guards on your operations, so you don't have to spend so much time getting in and out of tractors and equipment to go in and out of different yards and what have you. Here's an additional list. Many of these are things that we see in everyday practice. I really encourage people to think about the medical supplies, specifically repeating guns. If you're giving a lot of shots, their accuracy is pretty good and really speeds up your process as you're working livestock through your corrals. There's many different items on this list, and we'd be happy to share that list with you in the future. Now, depreciation is another component that I really do encourage you to spend some time either learning about or thinking about. And it really revolves around what is your typical depreciation schedule. And as you can see on this list, you have the 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, 15-year, and even the 20-year sort of depreciation schedule on things like farm buildings. Or machine sheds within that particular structure. Whereas with new equipment, tractors and what have you, that can be on a 5-year plan in relationship to that. Now, there are two different approaches to speed that depreciation up. They are referenced as 179s versus the accelerated depreciation. And depending on how much investing you are doing in that particular year, in 2025, for example, the benefit of Section 179 is that you can do it or do that depreciation process at the federal level on any or all of the respective investments that you are doing. If you do an accelerated depreciation, any and all of the items that are in that particular class have to be done entirely. So let's take, for example, you purchase both a new tractor and a new skid steer, which both fall in the 5-year depreciation schedule, typically. You could do an accelerated depreciation on both of those items, but if you only wanted to do the 179, you could do it on either the tractor or the skid steer, as an example. I can answer further questions if we have them, but I believe that that was fairly clear. Now, one of the approaches that many folks that I have worked with over the years have taken is, instead of utilizing a depreciation schedule as such, they do a lease to buy on a piece of equipment. And with a lease to buy, 100% of the investment that they make into the lease is actually a way in which to decrease their income because it is an expense as compared to a depreciation schedule. In those particular those particular arrangements, I encourage you to spend some time reading and having a lawyer look at the lease in and of itself. And oftentimes they will have a way in which you buy out that lease, where you actually purchase that piece of equipment at the end of the period of that lease for $1 or something to that extent. But that is another consideration, especially during this time when you're trying to decrease your actual income. Other typical underutilized tools from my perspective, in most cases in agriculture, a majority of the people that I work with are investing in their assets, their land, their livestock, their equipment, and oftentimes don't consider the potential investment in things like individual retirement accounts. And so with that in mind, I would encourage people to consider the investment in things like a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. In the case of a traditional IRA that is pre-tax, that means that it can be deducted from your income. And yes, there are limits to how much you can invest. But with that in mind, it might be helpful in relationship to reducing your taxable income on an annual basis. In addition, it also helps you in the future as you get to a point of wanting to retire as well. Another potential investment option is for perhaps your child or grandchild or even a neighbor or someone else like that is a 529 investment in relationship to helping them go to college or school, tech school, or those funds can also be converted into a Roth IRA for them in the future. Another suggestion that was made to me is the aspects of charity. So take, for example, you had a bull or a cow completely depreciated out. You actually sell that in the name of your charity, and they receive the funds for that. And you, in essence, don't have to claim that as income or basis recapture in your taxes, getting a double benefit. Not only are you, in essence, contributing to that charity, but you don't have to claim that as income in relationship to the basis. You can also give a straight gift to children or anyone else that you would like to donate those funds to. And another item that I have become more familiar with recently is in relationship to the purchase from your business funds, your farm funds, into a whole life insurance policy. And that is to offset your business management skills if you were ever to pass away or no longer could handle those components within your operation. So those funds then would be utilized to hire a replacement manager, or in essence could be provided to your offspring if they came back, in essence, to manage the business. And then also you can pay for other life insurance policies, in essence, to create the income that would be necessary to have them be able to pay the non-farming heirs property upon your passing. So in conclusion, there are endless options from my perspective of investment opportunities. And so again, I encourage you to think about smart business investments. Think about how you can, in essence, invest in things like information and technology, as well as the consideration of safety for you and the animals as you're working with them. And then there's nothing wrong with creature comforts. And so I would encourage you to think about how those things that you've always wanted since you've been 6 years old and the possibility of you investing in them exists. There's nothing wrong with treating yourself to those things as well. And then consider non-traditional investments as well as working with the professionals in relationship to different tax saving ideas. So I want to impart on you that it's really important to start doing something, making a plan, thinking about these things, but also considering how much of an investment some of the opportunities that you might have, and begin to put those into place. With that, I'd be happy to visit about any of these components if you have some questions this evening.
There are a few questions. One of them is, what can you do with pastures that are rotated already? They're made up of rocks, swamps, and trees.
Great question. I always think about these as hard to manage swamps, Maddie. I believe that there are some really good pieces of equipment that can be mounted on four-wheelers and or side-by-sides, and actually applying things like fertilizer or herbicide might be a pretty good option. Recently, I've been talking to a lot of folks that have been out there with brush cutters and opening up areas, taking out some of those invasive species. And then another thing that I really encourage people to take the time, if they can, especially before we get snow, to actually go out, and if they are feeding hay, feed hay in those areas of our pastures that are so rocky and are difficult to get at, because it's a lot easier to, in essence, deliver fertility through the feeding of hay as compared to trying to spread fertilizer on those pastures, increasing the fertility and also potentially delivering some seed out there at the same time.
Thank you. Someone else asked if you could give some more information on water fountains for northern Minnesota, maybe some better brands or types for the very cold north.
There are a lot of very good water fountains that are on the market. And I've had the opportunity to utilize numerous brands. I encourage people to spend a lot of time putting the installation together correctly, utilizing the thermal tubes coming up so that we get the benefit of the heat coming from the soil that is underneath the water fountain, utilizing enough insulation around the base of the actual water fountain, and then also installing it with a good quality heat tape so that even if you don't plug it in right away or all the time, that you actually have the ability to plug it in, whether that's with a heater or with that heat tape and or the actual donut heater. Having said that, the other thing that I'd encourage people to do is make sure that the water fountain is located in an area where you don't have direct wind on that fountain. And all of those things will help to minimize that. The other thing that I would suggest is installing it with a frost-free hydrant, a high-quality frost-free hydrant, relatively close, so that you can utilize another option to get water to the livestock. Even put into that water fountain and having that water circulate through there will also help to minimize the freezing and allow water to be delivered to the animals. So I didn't give an answer directly about the type of water fountain, but all of those components are really important to be successful in addition to picking a good water fountain. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. You'll find out the good quality water fountains.
What about your thoughts on 2025 heifer retention?
I saw that question come through. Steve, I really appreciate that. As I look at the aspects of heifer retention, especially now with the fluctuation in the market more recently, it looks like as I look at feeder calf markets, it seems as if the heifers have really been discounted at a higher rate, more in the tune of about 15 to 20 bucks a hundred. That gives you somewhere in the neighborhood of an extra $100 to $200 per head, depending on the situation. To start with a lower investment on those heifers. With that in mind, and looking at feeder cattle, look and continue to think that we're going to have $2,500 feeder cattle going into 26. You know, as we get further and further out, there's a higher risk, but I don't think it is a bad deal. I'd encourage you to do a partial budget on that, of course, and I know you will. But that is basically how I would look at it and look at factoring in further slide in the market to some extent as well.
And there's one more question about the anticipated impact of additional Argentine beef purchase to the U.S.
So if I can, I'm going to try and share this screen. There we go. This is something that I was just looking up prior to the presentation. And as we look back over from 2000 to 2025, you can see that there has been a slight increase in Argentinian beef in 25 already in comparison to previous years. More importantly, I think it's really important to consider the 24,000 metric tons. There was about a 42% increase already. We anticipate with supplies as tight as we have them currently, that we are going to increase the amount of imports. This is especially important as we look at the carcass weights going up so dramatically in the last year specifically. We need to import lean in order to, in essence, take advantage of the fat that is being put on those carcasses. And so good lean Argentinian trim is really going to be an option. Now, as you look down that list, it's very clear that even if we quadruple the amount of impact that we see in relationship to 4 times the amount of Argentinian beef as suggested, compared to the other places that are the primary suppliers. It's a lot, but it's really not that much in regards to that. I was recently listening to Randy Black of Cattle Facts, and he suggested that if we look at strictly the fundamentals, the supply and demand components of what that might entail, it would suggest approximately a decrease in our fat cattle prices of about $1.50 per hundredweight, which is really not that much. But we have to realize that during this sort of discussion, scare, whatever you want to call it, if we look at what is happening on the actual futures market, we've seen record amount of trading activity suggesting that it has nothing to do with beef farmers. It's all to do with speculators. And so the speculators are running, and therefore you're going to see more dramatic shifts in the current pricing unrelated to supply and demand. And I'm hopeful that we will start to see the level heads starting to prevail in relationship to the current market.
All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, we want to thank everyone for attending and participating in the second presentation of the U of M Extension's Beef webinar series. This presentation, oh, sorry, one more question. Someone has asked the imported beef about imported beef quality assurance.
That is the million-dollar question. I always encourage people to ponder, is apples really apples when we start to import things? This can be any products that we are importing. We trust that they do a good job harvesting and caring for that product, but it is a very legitimate concern. And so I would, that is something above our control, but it is something that we should be encouraging our policymakers and our Food and Drug Administration to consider in relationship to importing all products, food-related products especially.
Well, thank you again for joining us. This presentation has been recorded, and everyone who is registered will receive a link to the recording from tonight's presentation after the conclusion of the webinar series. Thank you all again for joining us tonight.